Welcome to Between Data and Risk podcast. Today we'll talk about global supply chain management methodologies utilizing data and digital twins to ensure frictionless flow of goods and resources. With our guest, Benjamin Abitbol, Global Supply Chain Executive. Stay tuned. If you're a business owner or senior manager, you probably had more than enough about all the wonderful opportunities awaiting you in the era of digitalization.
Whether it is big data, cloud, data science, or whatever buzzword is currently trendy.
If you would like to hear someone dissecting these claims and showing you what it actually takes to improve business processes, you're in the right place.
This is Between Data and Risk, where we discuss real-life examples of what works and what doesn't in the world of business operations.
Hi, I'm your friendly neighborhood data guy, Dr. Marian, and with me is my co-host, Artur Cognition Shared Solutions Chief Risk and Strategy Officer.
Hello.
Welcome to this episode of Between Data and Risk. Today, we'll take a fresh look at supply chain management and how digital twins may help mitigate risks and stress test the processes to increase resilience. We have with us Benjamin Abitbol, Global Supply Chain Executive, who agreed to share some of his experiences with us. Hello, Benjamin.
Hi there. Thank you for having me. Appreciate it.
Yes, thank you for joining us. We're really excited because we have times of turbulence, and there is a lot of problems from stuck up Suez Canal to some perturbations in ports to
lack
general
of drivers
lack of
through
resources.
COVID. Yeah.
Yes. Yeah.
So the question that nags us the most, to be honest, is how can companies really mitigate these risks? Because it's something different to say, okay, there is a chance that we will not get the load of whatever we need to produce to keep producing, and actually doing something about it. With your extensive knowledge and experience, what's your advice to people who are thinking, okay, I know something can go wrong, but what can I do?
Yes. And actually, like you said, I know we're hearing a lot about supply chain these days with what happened with COVID, but for the supply chain professionals, this is a way of life. I mean, it was the way we lived before COVID and the way we're going to live after COVID. So it's really nothing new. And when you see all these different moving parts in supply chain, from vendors to factories to carriers to distribution centers, even to customers that change their mind all the time. All these moving parts, you have to plan, but also be ready for things that will not materialize. And there's always something that's not going to materialize. So I would say there's three elements you need to capture in order to address a lot of these risks. One is sensing, so data sensing. So making sure that you're always on the lookout for changes. Like, for instance, on the planning side, we had a planning software that gave us a projection based on point of sales with key accounts like Walmart, Amazon, Target, with a lot of investment in getting a pretty good accurate demand signal. But there's always going to be something happening in terms of the Walmart results. I know where they are supposed to be, and they're going to shut down their open to buy, for instance, right? So you had all the plans to produce everything and box it and sea ship it, and then they just shut down their open to buy. So being able to hear these changes with regular conversations with your customers, with your partners, and the planner telling you, oh, by the way, there was a poor review yesterday, and they're shutting down the open to buy. So I'm sorry, but I'm going to have to cancel POs and not place orders. So we were able to hear that early enough so that we could actually take action and say, well, we're not going to box these watches for Walmart, and we're going to box them for somebody else. And if we had stuck to the plan, it would have been a lot of inventory stuck for a while for no reason. So I think it's sensing information. Another also example of sensing is on the jewelry business. We had a lot of vendors on the East Coast shipping through FedEx to go to our distribution center on the West Coast. And there was one situation, I think it was a couple of years ago, where there was ice storm in Memphis, and we were using FedEx, and the goods got stuck for about a week. So what we've learned from this, actually, well, now we'll be paying attention to the weather. And if we see that there's going to be a storm happening in that region close to Memphis, let's use another carrier. Let's use UPS, for instance. And that really helped us a couple of times. So sensing information ahead of time is really helpful. The other aspect is when you look at your supply chain, look at where you have a single point of failure and build redundancy in these areas. So we had obviously, when COVID hit, everything became like a constraint. But I think you need to make sure you also there's always a backup plan. If it's freight, it's different carriers, it's different routes. If it's production, if it's vendors, is making sure there's always like the same part can be sourced from a different vendor, which is something that saved us during COVID at Timex, where we had basically all the cases for the watches double sourced in China and in India, and that was by design for competition purposes because obviously labor costs were cheaper in India, but also having as a backup. And when COVID hit and China started to shut down
Close down.
around February, March, we were able also to sense that information early. And the vendors were telling us, by the way, this is what's going on. Nobody knew what was going on, but at least there was something so we started getting ready to engage our vendors in India to start a second sourcing. And then when actually they shut down for actually 2 months after Chinese New Year, which you can imagine they were shut down already for Chinese New Year, and then extended Chinese New Year for another couple of months, we were able to get the products from India. And then India shut down. So we were able to back to China. So we were one of the only vendors in the industry that kept the production flow going. So that was a good example of having that redundancy in place. And then I would say the third aspect is to have really good relationships with the people you work with customers, with the vendors, with the carriers, because if everything else fails, these guys will save you. So for instance, when we had a major case constraint with Timex, it was in 2012, we had an issue with some vendors, and we could not supply products to our key accounts, Walmart, Amazon, Target. And if you don't have a good relationship, these guys will drop you and it will go to the next brand. And we had some really good relationships with these accounts, and they allowed us for a period of time. Obviously, you need to fix your issues to shape demand. So they were telling us, what do you have available? And we'll actually shape demand for you for a period of time so we can keep your productions running, but also keep the supply going. So that was an example of actually when we couldn't find a solution, we were able to work with our customers to soften the impact to their customers, but also to our factories. And then same thing with carriers. When COVID hit, we were using a lot of commercial flights from our factory was in the Philippines, and then we had goods going to Hong Kong using Cathay Pacific. Obviously, all these flights got canceled because they were not transporting people.
Mm-hmm.
But we had a really good relationship with an asset carrier, so UPS, that had their own airplanes, and they were able actually to keep the shipments going for, I would say, goods, not people. So that kept us also going on shipping products. So if we didn't have this relationship where they know that we're in the long run and we're going to help them when they need us, they will step in and help you. So I think between data sensing, building this redundancy, and having strong relationships, that's how you can really navigate all these things that be thrown at you at any given time.
But first of all, I'm pretty surprised. One of the three. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yes. Mm-hmm.
And the greatest.
So, in terms of digital twinning, so we whatever I experienced was on the end-to-end visualization of your supply chain. So, using tools like Logility, for instance, where you have supply planning and you're able to see all the inventories you have in different locations, what's in transit, and then you can really also click down from the product level to the parts level in the same system. So that's one thing we put in place at Timex, where the folks in the US at their fingertip could see the whole supply chain. And also, if we got this huge, I would say, unforeseen order for a big account that was going to draw a lot of materials, we're able to double click on the case or the dial, the hand that was actually impacted by this order, and then take proactive actions with the vendor. So, by the way, we had this unforeseen demand on this style, which means that this case we'll need to have increased production. So, in the old world, it would take us probably 5 weeks, from the time the order gets in to the order ripple through the vendor, right? Because you have to place the order on the factory then runs, then they go through their weekly cycle, and then they place the order on the vendor. So this takes a while. Having that digital visualization of your supply chain and doing simulations helped us call the next day the case vendor, plastic cases for Ironman watches, say, hey, we just got this huge order for Walmart. It's going to hit you 2 to 3 weeks from now. Get ready, and then start producing. So these are the type of solutions we were using just to be proactive in the supply chain. And it worked the other way around. If we get this supply constraint, this component, it will impact this specific watch, which will impact these accounts and these orders. Let's proactively work with the customers, tell them, hey, by the way, there's going to be a delay, or can we just substitute this style with another one until we're able to get back? And that just provides an amazing customer experience because they know that you're on top of things and you're able to proactively find solutions for them so they don't get disrupted. Another,
I have it.
Yeah.
If you don't mind me jumping in for a second, because I would like to link to what you said in the beginning about these three elements, and now it has a cost associated. Being able to shift from Katai to UPS, I assume it wasn't cheaper because probably you would use it in the first place. How do you approach securing or calculating what is the padding that you need to have on your supply chain? And does this digital twinning help with that as well? And if so, how? Because we spoke with a couple of companies about digital twins, and they said, but we need to have an ROI on it. It's like, we have our supply chain optimized to 99.6% of production running, and now you propose us this digital twin, and we don't know, but it doesn't improve our KPIs. So our suggestion was that it can help you reduce this padding. You really know
absolutely
if the things go south, how much it will cost to get unstuck, to use parliamentary language.
I think to your point, digital twinning gives you an advanced learning of actually advanced knowledge of what's going to happen in the future, and it will avoid you to actually have these very expensive backup plans. So the example I gave with UPS is that when the COVID hit, there was no way to predict that and be able to react. So that was the last resort. But with digital twinning, and when you see these things happening ahead of time, you can start preparing for other solutions which are going to be not as expensive. For instance, we could say, well, all right, let's do some sea shipments earlier instead of taking the airplane. Let's take some sea shipments earlier, and then avoid having to spend more on freight, for instance. But that's where I think the digital twinning helps you also evaluate different options and say, well, if I do this, how much is it going to cost me versus if I do something else? And then you can make the best decision in terms of, okay, well, based on what I know, at least I know that this option is going to cost me more than this one. And then you can make a judgment call. Because it's all about, on a day-to-day basis, judgment call that you make. And digital twinning gives you a better assessment so you can make the best choice. Another example in terms of digital twinning was to map the whole flow in our factory at Blue Now in the jewelry business, where we could actually now see where each order was in the queue, and be able to as we got closer to the cutoff time and the due date, to reprioritize the order on the shop floor, which wasn't the case before, because it went to this black hole, and then you had to send somebody physically on the floor, look for this order, and then try to push it through. With digital twinning, you're able to say, okay, well, now let's make sure this order goes first and push this one back. And then you're basically mapping your physical flows with your logical flows. So when you move something on the physical side, so if you're using RFID, for instance, it will notify the system, oh, by the way, this order has moved to this next stage, and we're getting closer to the completion. And then if you make a decision on the digital side, say, well, I want to hold back this order, I want to put this one instead, it will physically tell the people on the floor, okay, well, change of prioritization, don't do this one, do this one instead. So it's really helping you to be very much more dynamic and aware of what's going on.
My question, my,
Yeah. Yes. Yeah. Yes. So that's a very good point. So every time you want to do these investments, it's like $1 to $2 million implementation between the software and then the consulting implementation and the team's time as well. So you need to really show there's an ROI. So obviously we had to put together return on investment with tangible. So the bulk of the return on investment was in terms of also helping us reduce the inventory, because when you don't know, you just put inventory, right? If you don't have a solution, just put inventory there, and then while we use the inventory,
freeze
we'll
the
figure out
capital.
the solution, right? So now you're saying, well, now I'll be able to react much faster. I don't have to carry so much inventory. So I'm going to go from 4 weeks down to 1 week of inventory. That's hard dollars. And then the financial guys will say, all right, well, not only it's on the balance sheet, but also it's obsolescence, it's cost of warehousing, financial cost, and that gets a lot of traction. And then once you've shown this financial piece of it, you can say, well, by the way, there's also incremental sales because we're going to capture more sales, and that's it's really hard to assess. You can say I'm going to gain maybe a couple of points of fill rates. A couple of points of fill rates means X amount of revenue, which translates into X amount of gross margin, and then there's customer satisfaction as well. But I think to your point, typically inventory reduction is one big element when you do that, because you're able to replace inventory with information. And that's really the key thing. It's actually how do you remove the risk through better information, and by doing so, remove the need for inventory, which is basically just a risk buffer.
Another question that I have about digital twins is cooperation with production. We've seen different models of implementation where production planning was done actually on the supply side. Also, how did it work in your case, and what is a good split of responsibilities and interconnectedness of the information? Because the production should know what they should produce, maybe they have some plan. So when the supply upstream, downstream influences it, yeah, they should probably know what they should make. So how to efficiently make it, how to make it work efficiently?
Yes. So the planning team is actually in my case. So I was responsible for both demand, supply, and production. So they were part of the same team. So we had an ongoing conversation with the teams. We had daily conversations, weekly calls, and so on. So the information was shared as it was happening. It was shared with the production team. So one thing we did with the production team, we tried to smooth their schedule, so like the high runners, and just fill the capacity with these, and then reserve some capacity for all the unplanned events that will happen. We know it's going to happen, but we don't know what it is exactly it's going to happen. So we always had this extra capacity that we could always use up for unplanned production, either increase in demand or shift to another style. So that communication was really close. So the supply planners, so we had people, so the factory was based in the Philippines. The supply planning team was based in the US. So there was also folks in the supply team that were based in the Philippines and were part of the daily production meetings that they had on the floor. And they would be able, in that would say at 9 o'clock in the morning when they had this production meeting, say, oh, by the way, this is something that we just got from the US, or it's the new information we got from Hong Kong, and we need to change the production, or what can we do to change our production plan so we can address the situation? Shift from this style to this style so we can address it. And they were in lockstep. And there was communication, daily from the US and daily from Hong Kong. And actually, we used the time difference to our advantage, because first thing in the morning, they had all the input from the US customers. So they knew exactly what was going on with Walmart, Target, and these guys. And first thing in the morning, when we got back, we had all the input of, yeah, we can do it or we cannot do it. I could go back to Walmart and say, by the way, we talked to our factory and this is what we can do. So yes, and that's daily.
I guess we're going back to this interpersonal relations where they are not only between the companies. I happen to be on the receiving end of the situations where the clients were decided that it's in their best interest to keep the suppliers in the dark. We are talking about supplying software mainly, and that I don't know, somehow it makes them look more professional if they pretend everything's all right, even though we can see from our side.
Yeah,
we try to supply, but there is no ability to receive, and we are kept in the dark. I think just to maybe it's some of my frustration, but I would like to hear what do you think about this kind of a situation where the client thinks that they need to have their best smiling mask on all the time and just pretend everything is okay when it clearly isn't.
Yes. I think it's very old school that keeping the vendors in the dark and using your bargaining power to basically have them bend over backwards. But I think it's something you can change over time as you build that relationship with the customer. So I had the same issue with Amazon, where actually Amazon was changing the orders without telling us, and there was this huge swings. And I was able to sit down with them and do the analysis and tell them, okay, well, this has been your sales strength, so we could see their POS. And it's been very smooth, and for these specific products, it was very smooth. And this is how you've been placing orders, which creates obviously issues for us, but also for you, because you're having more inventory than you need because you're buying more stuff than you need, and your system is way too responsive. And I was able to show them with data that the system that they thought was the best in class in the industry was way too responsive for our type of product. I'm sure it was perfect for other products, but for our product, it wasn't the best response system. So then they started paying attention when they saw the data and said, "Oh, you're right. Why did we buy 10,000 of this specific watch when we only sold 100 for the last 6 months? It doesn't make sense. It makes sense in their system because there was probably a logic there." So when they saw that and when they saw the data, then they gave us the responsibility and they started trusting us to share the information. I had the same issue where I was at HP and we had a quality issue, and I went to the customer, it was Quest at the time, to help fix the issue. It was a quality issue they were dealing with. And when I was there for 2 weeks on the customer side. I could hear conversations from the customers, and they were saying, "Oh yeah, we have this big rollout for computers we're going to do next month." I say, "Hey guys, why don't you tell us that? Because if you tell us you have this big rollout, I can get ready and we'll ship it on time." Oh, and sometimes they just didn't think about it. So, "Oh yeah, I didn't know that we could share this information with you guys," and where it wasn't part of their process. So after this conversation, when they had these big rollouts and big projects, they would say, "Oh, by the way, call the vendors 3 weeks before and let them know that this is potentially happening." And I told them it's not a commitment. Just give us information so we can get ahead of the game. But I think it's also on you as the vendor to reach out and then explain in very simple terms or terms that they understand how it's going to help them if they don't leave you in the dark.
We had recently some contact with a company where they had, as part of their process, regular kind of discussions with their clients about potential orders, so they had some visibility with a certain kind of probability bounds of what was coming for the next 3, 6, even up to 12 months.
Yes.
It was a business with pretty big lead times, particularity of the sector. But I think this is great that it's actually practiced a bit broader. How can you actually convince your clients that they should share this? Because clients will. Yeah, I can see several risks. I'm a risk manager, so
Yep.
I think about these things in terms of risk. And one thing, clients will not want to share this because it may disclose their plans. Second one is clients may not want to share this because they will feel that they have some obligations to then go through with these orders, even if it's stated black on white that it's just a provisional projection or whatever. And the third one I can think of is that if it locks them in, kind of if they source from several different ones, if they disclose, they don't want to. It's all pretty much similar themes, but clients may feel reluctant to share this. How do you make them comfortable sharing this information with you? Because again, it's about relationship, right?
Yeah. So I think that there's two elements. One is to find the right person on the customer side that will understand what you're talking about. So let me give you an example. When I first joined at Timex, the sales team was really the only team talking to the customers, and the planners were not allowed to talk to the customer. And once we were able to change that paradigm and say, well, planners talking to planners have the same language. So when you have planners at Timex and planners at Walmart or Target, they will bond with at the same level. And there's always a level of distrust, between the planners from a customer and the sales team from a vendor. Because to your point, the sales guys will use that information, to their advantage. When it's planners, we're not, like for instance, an account would never before we put that in place would never share the open to buy. I mean, that's like the secret. You don't want to share how much you're going to spend for the quarter and so on, because also it can have implications from a public standpoint. But when it's used as a way to do a better job with people that are in the same field as you, that understand how it's going to impact you, then the information flows. So we were getting access to open to buy after that all the time from the planners, not from the buyers, but from the planners. So you need to find within your customer who's the right person who's going to be your advocate, and then we'll be able to convince the other team members at the customer that say this is the right thing to do. What Arthur is saying is really helpful and is going to help us. If you can't convince the decision maker, have somebody there that will help you convince the decision maker. And we were able to do this with the planning teams in the different accounts, where they were saying, hey, this is going to make our job much easier if we're able to share that information, because I'll have better supply, because I'm not stuck, like you said, with orders that I can cancel, because now Benjamin's allowing me to cancel my orders because I have this flexibility. So that's one thing, is finding the right person. And then the other aspect is really, like I said earlier, it's really making sure that you're able to convey how it's going to be to their best interest to do that, and also tell them there's no commitment. And let's be very clear. If you're telling me that you need X amount of products, I'm not going to hold you to it. But it's really something that's going to help us at least gauge where we are. And I'll tell you all along, by the way, I'm not going to be able to support it, or yes, we should be able to support it. And then it puts you then in a better position than your competition, for instance, if you're able to have this conversation. But you have to be very clear. This is not commitment. This is just a forecast. And I had the same conversation with the vendors, and they loved it, because I told them, yeah, I think this is going to happen. I'm not committed to it. And it's really, it removes all the walls when you start removing that pressure of having to commit to it.
We had one of our first, because what I like is this discussion about, let's say, open communication, actually across the supply chain. One of our first episodes, it was, and we mentioned it a couple of episodes again, episodes ago again. We spoke with the company which actually failed, they tried to map out the whole supply chain for textile industry. They were sponsored by HSBC, which is kind of good sponsor to have and gives you a lot of credibility, and yet they failed to get enough traction and interest in transparency of the supply chain. How do you think it works with the manufacturing, like in the case of companies you worked for? Would it be possible for this digital twin to spread out into, I don't know, digital triplets or quadruplets? So would it make sense to create a platform where, connect the digital twins so people can make these scenarios because as we said, it's not about setting things in stone, but we think, because our client said that there is a chance that we will need produce more, it would mean that we will need it, more from you to make it a bit faster and maybe more transparent. Like, this is a projection. This is not an order yet. Would technology help break some of this, I don't know, expectation or the fear of mismanaging expectations?
Absolutely. The technology just gives you visibility and it gives you assurance. Once you see what's going on, you feel better, right? But that's just one element. The most important thing is actually the other party that you're working with understand what you're trying to do, and it's going to help them also for them to do a better job. So as an example, in our supply planning tool, we also had the ability to schedule production for some of the vendors. So we were, I would say, the vast majority of the volumes for some vendors. So we were able to kind of put in our system, this is the max capacity that they have, this is the demand that we have, and then this helped us raise where there was an issue. It wasn't really a scheduling system for them because they had their own scheduling process, but it helped them say, well, by the way, we're going to blow your capacity here because we see how our product impacts the way you manufacture products. So because we know that, let's figure out how we can maybe work on Saturdays for a couple of weeks so we can start addressing this ahead of time, so you don't end up having this huge increase. I think, and there's another example. So that was really at the beginning of my career. I was back in the 90s when we were trying to put in place vendor managed inventory with HP. So HP was asking vendors to carry inventory in their factory at their cost, and I had to sell that, right? So at first, when you see that, well, you're pushing inventory in my books, it's not healthy. And actually I was able to show them, well, for you, you're going to get much better visibility of what we consume on a daily basis versus all these very highly erratic orders that you're getting right now because of the inventory swings. Now you have complete transparency of what the production is, how much inventory we have in a factory, and basically long term, inventory is going to go away. It's going to disappear because before we had buffers at HP, you had buffers on your side, and these buffers were just increasing the demand signals, and then you were just always just running around trying to catch up. Now that you're going to be it's basically you're putting your inventory that you owned before, instead of having more inventory, you just shift it. You shift it to our factory, and then you're just getting on just in time. And one way to get this buy-in was to use a tool. Was a website at the time that showed them real time. This is how much we had inside, how much of your specific memory or hard disk drive or motherboard, and this is how much we've consumed today. And this is how much we consumed the last, say, 13 weeks, and what we think we do the next 13 weeks. And having that visibility empowered them. So, oh yeah, now I know what the hell's going on, and I'm not putting inventory just there and then hoping for the best. And then they were able to, every time we were pulling faster than we were at plan, they were starting to react right away. And they loved it. Actually, at first it was, oh yeah, it's going to be a huge inventory burden and a cash burden. Eventually, for them, it was a success factor because actually they were able to run their factories much more efficiently. But without the tool, it would have been impossible. Because and that's where I think digital twins help you just remove all the anxiety around uncertainty. But it's
interesting that what you said about the impact of that connection of the supply chains and supply chain management systems, digital twins, the direct impact of that on the manufacturing and the planning. Because I think the difference is when we spoke about Serai, the startup that unfortunately failed, they were trying to do it in the textile industry. And I wasn't personally involved in that, but from the kind of the plentiful descriptions of it that I read in the media as it was kind of launching, ramping up, and after it failed, I got the distinct impression that the angle they took was they wanted to know the map the whole supply chain because of ethical concerns, sustainability concerns. I think they didn't really. I don't know if they completely missed it, but they certainly didn't put emphasis on streamlining and visibility and resilience that such a look through was enabling.
Yeah.
So I think they kind of missed the point a bit here. So is there every time we've seen this kind of look through and this kind of relationships and systems connectivity, it was done bespoke, right? We've worked on a couple of systems that enabled this for a company and linked through pretty kind of standard media like email, like connecting to some ERPs. Are there any standards or widespread tools, widespread technologies that people can use almost off the shelf, or something that is emerging which will enable almost commoditization of this kind of technology?
Well, most of the solutions now have a SaaS solution, and you can also it's cloud based. So even vendors that don't have a lot of IT resources. I mean, most of the vendors we had in China didn't have an IT department, right? They barely had Excel. But now everybody has access to internet, to the website. So all of these tools now have solutions which don't require to have servers on site for these vendors, and they can just log in. They have their own login, and then they'll be able to see all the beautiful stuff that you see at your own factory. So I think, and this has been going on for a long time. This is not nothing new. Where you're actually, and I would say all the solutions you can think of all have that ability now. Just log in from any location. It could be a remote location, and have access to all that information. And also for you to either upload, with either a link with your system or an Excel upload, or even type in the information. And some of the vendors we had were typing in the information on the website, provide what we want to in projection. But again, do not rely on a system to tell you what to do. That's just, there's no system that will make sure that order is the perfect order for you to focus on, and nothing is going to change, right? So it's an illusion to think that a system, even with AI, that the system is actually going to do all these things. The system is only, for me,
especially with AI.
Exactly. It's just
we're very skeptical about AI, so yeah, that's why I kind of interjected, because it's
because it can bring more noise than what you have right now. But I think where people make and I've seen that many times, they have the false assumption that the system is going to fix everything. No, it doesn't. It doesn't. It's just an enabler. And the problem is, if you're not addressing the process and the relationships, the system is going to fail. I've seen that. I've seen many times where people implement the software, they think everything is going to be smoothly, and then we don't have to talk anymore. No, actually, because you have a system, you have to talk more now, because now you have more information to discuss and more decisions to make. And I think that's the fallacy that a lot of people think when they go into these implementations, is they think that the system is going to take care of all these issues. No, it creates the same language. It creates a platform. It gives you visibility. Like if you're on a highway, you're not looking at the car ahead of you. You're looking at 3 or 4 cars ahead of you to see what's going to happen. And that system does that. And there's a crash ahead of time, well, you can stop early and then take a different route. That's what the system will do. The system is not going to be like Waze and tell you, okay, well, now take this route. Because there's so many considerations that that you have that you know about, and that your vendors can also influence, that the system is not going to give you the right answer. It will just give you all these early warning signals and give you suggestions maybe, but at the end of the day, you'll make the final call. But
so it will give you the data, but not the insight and the knowledge about
exactly
what to do about it.
And what was funny about this website I just talked about, at the time, it was three of us who put it together at HP, and it cost us maybe $5,000 to do it. And it worked, and it was beautiful. The vendors loved it.
Mm-hmm.
It was easy to access. And then I heard down the road that they made the software much more robust, and they spent millions of dollars to make it more sexy. But I'm sure it didn't get any more improvements from a supply standpoint because you have a more sexy system. It's actually the quality of the interaction you have between the players that makes a difference, not the quality of the system.
And usually, the simpler the system, the more useful it is. I remember that the first digital twin that we've built as our consulting practice, we literally cobbled it together in Python in a weekend, and it fulfilled, I would have to say, about 96% of the requirements.
Exactly.
The rest was just polishing it up, and certainly, it was a tiny bit cheaper than 10 million. I have to say, just a tiny bit. I think we've arrived at a very good place to kind of wrap it up, because we could go on about different technologies, but we don't want to get too technical. And I think the very important kind of takeaway from this episode is that whatever technology you employ, whatever kind of fancy system you have, AIs, MLs, everything, it's the discussion with the person, having the relationship, having that kind of process, both internally to actually work with the data, turn, as Marian always says, turn the data into knowledge and insights, and and also externally, that exchange of information, and not always it has to be to screw the other person, it may be to mutual benefit, right? Thank you very much for Benjamin for these insights, because it was literally very, very useful to hear someone with experience in these matters to hear how it actually should be done. Are there any kind of materials that you would recommend to people who would want to learn more about this or about you?
Well, you can definitely reach out to me if you need more information on LinkedIn. I'm on LinkedIn. You can find me on LinkedIn. And there's plenty of literature on these subjects. Nothing comes to mind right now, but I can probably add some more links on my LinkedIn profile so that people can find these. And very happy to have a conversation.
Certainly, and thank you again for taking the time. Marian, you want to add something?
Yes, I wanted. Like in the end of the path, when you have data, when you have information, knowledge, in the end is the wisdom. So I would say that we touched, from my limited perspective, we touched until the latter. It's not just the knowledge. I really liked the way how you connected the need of having the data so you can feed the conversation, but also the elements. Something that I would like to point, like you have this process, and like these guys with, we didn't have any process to tell the vendors that actually. So it's also important to make notes that other people can update their processes. It's something that we are pretty heavily leaning on, is to make sure that things are well processed. No, but that's all. I'm really grateful for this conversation. Let me also in my head put some bricks together.
No, thank you, and it was a pleasure having this conversation with you guys as well. And it's always delightful to talk to you guys. Thank you so much.
Thank you, and as always we say, let's hope it was of use to someone.
Thank you for listening.
Also, don't miss the next one, where we'll be talking to Panduka Nagahawate, Vice President of Data Science at Majestic Steel USA, about building data science capability.
Subscribe on your favorite podcast platform or visit bdr.show to find out more about future episodes and guests. You can also check out cognition.llc for more information on cognition-first solutions, our services, and other events hosted by us.
For now, it's thank you from myself, Artur Guja, and my co-host, your friendly neighborhood data guy, Dr. Marian.
Thank you and goodbye.